Hi everybody, so welcome to today's seminar on advanced dairy farming. I would like to welcome you, and I'm Zana van Dijk, the editor of Dairy Global. We have a great lineup today, of course, for speakers that will join us and give their presentations on the topic. I would also like to welcome our audience who is watching via live stream. If you have questions, you may do so via the chat box and we'll get back to them. And to you, the audience, please, after each presentation, we do have time for questions. So if you'd like to ask a question, feel free after each presentation. We're here at Advanced Dairy Farming. You know, it can be thought of in terms of nutrition, digital, and health perspectives and solutions, to mention just a few. And so today we will look at various aspects of this topic that play a role in terms of making a dairy farm more efficient and more sustainable. So with that, I would like to welcome our very first speaker, Ben Arnouds. He will be presenting on virtual fencing for grazing management of dairy cattle. And Ben is an assistant professor at, in livestock management at KU Leuven University. So welcome, Ben, if you'd like to come and start your presentation. Please, a round of applause for Ben.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Zana, for the nice introduction. Thank you also for the organizers to invite me to give this speech. I'm very delighted. And well, like Zana already said, I'm an assistant professor at the University of Leuven in Belgium. And well, we have been doing research on virtual fencing technology and making use of commercial virtual fencing technology in a demonstration project for the past 3 years. And today I want to present some of the insights we obtained in the past years on grazing management for dairy cattle with the help of this technology. Let me first briefly introduce my research focus and my research team. So our group is working on livestock technology. So we are developing, optimizing, implementing and validating technologies to support livestock management. And well, we are located at the campus in Geel in Belgium, which is about 50 kilometers northeast of Leuven. And in our research, we focus first of all on sensor technology, developing new hardware, which can give us interesting insights in the performance, health, welfare of animals. This includes sensor technology to monitor the milking process, to monitor milk quality, but virtual fencing technology is also one of them. Of course, all these sensors, they produce interesting raw data, but not of specific interest for the farmer, of course. He's more interested in the information and decision support that can be extracted from that. So we are also working on data processing algorithms to translate the raw sensor data into advice for the dairy farmer and the veterinarian. Of course, this involves a lot of new and novel technology. And that's why we also organize a lot of training to facilitate technology transfer, let's say. This is the team, a picture that was taken last summer, and well, about half of the people are working on the sensor technology, so new hardware, and half of the people are working on data processing. But today I want to talk about virtual fencing technology. It's not new. People have been doing research on that since the 1990s. But of course, with the availability of mobile network, GPS, and this has been accelerated a lot in the past years. And we have been working in this project with commercial technology from Norway. And basically what happens is, or what is going on, is that the cattle are wearing a collar. And the collar has a GPS tag inside, also a battery, a solar panel, and it also has a connection with the mobile network. Basically, it comes with an app, and on the application, which can run on a smartphone or a tablet, you can draw a virtual zone, let's say, in which the animals can graze. And once you save the virtual fence, let's say, or the virtual zone, you can download it or upload it on the collars. And basically, from the moment it's uploaded, the collars can work on its own. So they need the mobile network connection to download the new virtual zone. But once that happened, it doesn't need continuous connection with the network. Of course, if you want to change the virtual fence, which is of course one of the main advantages of the technology, then you need again a good mobile network connection. Basically what happens is the GPS location of the cow is continuously checked against the virtual borders of the pasture, and when the animal is approaching too close to the border, then well, it will receive a sound signal, and the sound has different tones, and when the animal is approaching closer to the border, the tone will increase. There is a movie later on to illustrate that as well. And of course, the faster the animal moves towards the border, the faster it will change tone. And when there are about 15 tones, and when it reaches the highest tone and the animal doesn't return back to the safe zone, let's say, or the virtual pasture, then it will receive an electric pulse. That electric pulse is about 30 to 50 times less intense than the pulses that are used on physical fences. So it's less invasive, but it's of course directly on the collar, so it's directly applied on the neck. That is basically how the technology works. Of course, as GPS technology is not accurate on the centimeter, of course, or not the application that we use here, you should always consider some kind of buffer zone, a buffer zone of about 2 to 5 meters. Depending on how many satellites the collar is connected to, it can be more or less accurate. So that is something you need to consider. Of course, there are a lot of applications. I don't need to explain all of them in detail, but of course, grazing management in dairy farming can be one of them. We have been mainly demonstrating that for nature preservation because there's really a need for these virtual fences because it's difficult to organize physical fences in a nature reserve. And of course, there are a lot of discussions on how this negatively affects animal welfare, but of course, you don't see it, but animals also interact with physical fence and they also can hurt themselves. So, of course, when an electric pulse is applied, the animals will experience this as a stressor, but when they learn the technology well, the number of stressors will be very low and it can be even lower than in the application of physical fences. And of course, physical fences can also be dangerous for wildlife, while the virtual fence is not. The virtual fencing technology also comes with a lot of insights and new data. So basically the GPS collar follows or tracks the animal. That information can also be sent to the cloud and we can access that information via the platform and use that also to, for instance, study behavior of animal. We can see where they are grazing, we can see the grazing density. If we combine the grazing patterns of different cows of the herd. We also see that there is a lot of flexibility. There is also the possibility to include exclusion zones, zones in which the animals cannot graze within the virtual zone, for instance, when the vegetation needs to be protected or when there is a bird nest or something. And of course, it's very obvious that this requires much less labor because it's just drawing the virtual zone in the app and, you don't need to change the physical fence every time. There are two types of this technology, let's say. There's one for sheep. It's a bit smaller, of course, because the animal is smaller. It can also be used for goats. The electric pulse is about 0.1 joule. Like I said, that is 60 times less intense than on a physical fence. And the battery, has a capacity of 10 ampere-hours. During the summer, this will last for, 4 to 6 weeks because there is a lot of sun then, long days, so the solar panel can load the battery. But of course in winter when days are shorter, they last for about 2 to 3 weeks. So then we have to replace and recharge the battery manually. Then the collar for cattle are a bit more heavy. They also come with a more intense pulse, but also a higher battery capacity. And that's also, the main reason why it is bigger, but of course these animals are bigger, so they can be bigger as well. And these will last in the summer for the entire grazing season. And during the summer we don't have to replace or recharge the battery, but in winter times we need to recharge them every month, every 1.5 months. Okay, this technology comes with an app. The app, which you can see on your smartphone or your tablet, you can see an update of the virtual zone, let's say. The white spots are the animals in the virtual zone. You can save virtual zones, and when you're not using them anymore, you can still store them, so you can reuse them later on. You can also get an overview of your animals. It gives an overview of, for instance, the battery status. You can move animals from one pasture to the other. There is also a lot of additional information that can be checked. This is, for instance, the grazing pattern. This is for a single day for a herd of 10 cows. So you can clearly see in the past day where they have been and where they have been grazing. You can also check where they had interactions with the border. So this is the number of electrical pulses of the herd of 10 cows here over a period of a full week. So you can count the number of pulses, and then you can also count the number of, or calculate the number of pulses per cow per day. but we will come back to that. Also activity, there is also an activity sensor, an accelerometer inside the collar, which can also be used, for instance, for behavior monitoring. And then, of course, like I said, connection to the mobile network is not crucial for the system to work, but if you want to upload a new pasture, then it's of course crucial that it has connection to the network. So that can also be checked there. Then apart from the app, it also comes with an online platform which is mainly interesting for us researchers to extract data also from the history. So in the app you can get the real-time information, or well, at least of the past week. But if you want to go back weeks and weeks or years even, and you can or we can consult the online platform, and we can extract data from it, get GPS locations of all our animals in the past years, and with a frequency of at least once every 50 minutes. Very crucial, and I already indicated it in the beginning of my presentation, is the learning phase. And I'm going to quickly explain you how we did it, but of course there are different approaches and different opinions on that. But here we selected an area of 7,000 square meters, which was physically fenced. So the blue zone is physically fenced. There was also a shelter there, but the shelter was on the east side quite close to this physical fence, which has some implications for the learning phase later on. So in the first day, of course, the first day we put the animals inside the physical fence, and we gave them the collar. We first gave them 1 day of time to adapt to the collar, not having already the sound signals and the shocks. So that's important to, well, first of all, be able to wear the collar. Then in the second day, we introduced the virtual zone. And as you can see, the virtual zone is, or the animals could only interact with the virtual border in the south of the area, because the other sides were still physically fenced, let's say. So that is the first interaction the animals could have with the fence and with the virtual fence. And you can see there are some yellow symbols, there are some red symbols. So the yellow symbols are sound warnings, the red symbols are electric shocks. And you can see that the animals are still exploring the area where they are not allowed to come. But of course, this is the first day that they experience this virtual fencing technology. So of course, they need to learn it. And we see, well, the first hour, the first 2 hours, the animals don't really know how to respond, how to react. But after 2 hours, they clearly associate or start associating the sound signal with the fact that they are not allowed to be there in that area. And if they don't respond to that correctly, then they get the electric pulse. Once after a few hours, and you see that the animals start to respond well to the sound signals, and very important to that is the ratio, let's say, of sound signals relative to the number of shocks, and that needs to be high enough. That means that they are responding well to the majority of the sound signals. Once they respond well, or you can see that the animals adapt, then you can introduce a second border. And we did that on day 3. We introduced a second border on the west side of our field. And there you can see that the animals also still have interactions and still have electric shocks as well. But you can see that they are not walking outside the allowed area anymore, or outside the safe zone. And you can see that, well, the number of shocks is quite low. And this even improves when we consider the 4th day, in which we introduce also a virtual fence in, or a virtual border in the north. And then you can see this animal had a lot of sound signals, so a lot of interactions with the border. It's exploring, it's trying to get the fresh grass, of course, at the edge of our virtual pasture, but it only had 1 shock. So this is showing a clear learning phase, a good learning phase, let's say, of the animal, getting acquainted to the system. Okay, so after that learning phase, which typically takes 4 or 5 days if they respond well to the system, and we have done that with several herds, sheep, goats, cattle, horses as well last year, it's was all very positive. And then, of course, we can, well, remove the physical fence and start really with the virtual fencing technology. This is now in a week, day 5 to day 9, so it's 5 days, 1 animal, and you can see, or you can count the number of in this case, the number of sound warnings, so yellow symbols, and this animal didn't have any electric pulses. If we look at the 10 cows, they had 3 electric pulses over 10 cows spread over the 5-day period, so that's very low. Like I already said, it's very important to consider the number of sound signals, the number of electric pulses, and especially the ratio of those. And as you can see here, the first day, well, this is actually day 2. I messed up with the x-axis, but so it's the first day that the virtual border was introduced on the south. There you can see there are still a lot of sound signals, but also a lot of shocks. But yeah, the animals don't really know yet how to respond to the system, so we should not focus too much on that, let's say, very first day. But very important here is that over day 2, 3, 4, you can clearly see that the ratio, which is the gray line, that the ratio of sound warnings over electric pulses, that it's clearly increasing. So the animals are responding well to the majority of our warnings. Very important is also, what we also experienced, is that there is a lot of variability between cows. So we tested in this trial 10 cows, but you can see cows which had, well, less than 50 or even less than 20 sound warnings per cow per day. But you can also see that there are some cows that explored a lot, interacted a lot with the border, and they had up to 700 sound warnings per day. So they were continuously grazing, let's say, at the edge, not escaping, but really exploring. And you can also see that those animals experienced the most electric pulses, but that was not really a problem. Those animals were, well, they showed nice behavior. That's also what I want to show in the next slide. So we saw that the responses to the sound warnings were really positive, about 52% of the responses, let's say. There we just saw that the animal returned quietly to the safe zone. In 45% of the cases, we even saw that the animal continued grazing while returning to the safe zone. So they really showed that they were quiet and restless. Okay, then of course to the electric pulses we saw a higher variability of responses, and that's normal because the electric pulse is there of course to punish the cow, to show, okay, you are not allowed to be here. So that's of course normal that the responses to that signal are less extreme. Okay, so here we can see an example. You can hear also the tone of the sound signal. I also showed it visually because it's not very easy to hear it, but you can see it almost reaches the highest tone, and then the animal recognizes that, turns back to the safe zone, wait until the system is reset, and then go back grazing at the border. So this is an animal that is well trained. Well, we see it in all animals, all explorative animals, which really show that behavior all day long. So it's very interesting. Okay, there is also the possibility to introduce exclusion zones, and if there are exclusion zones, then of course we see more interactions with the borders, which is normal because the animals don't expect a virtual border to be there. And then we see more sound signals, but also more electric shocks or electric pulses. Like I said before, we also try to predict the behavior of the animals based on the information we get from the GPS locations and the accelerometer signals coming from the colors. You can track, of course, cows, but we can also see that depending on the behavior that the cow was experiencing or showing, we can also see that some of the parameters were slightly different. So that was an indication that we could use those signals as well to classify the behavior. For instance, covered distance was more during grazing compared to when the cow was resting, lying, or standing. And based on that information, we tried to classify the behavior, and for that we used random forest models. But most important is that, well, if we consider three behaviors, so grazing, standing, lying, we were not that accurate because especially between standing and lying, it could not really differentiate. But if we considered two different behaviors, so grazing and resting, then we could classify that behavior with an accuracy of 66 to 81%, depending on the cow and depending on the technique we used. So only based on the GPS locations and the accelerometer signals. Then we also tried rotation grazing. Very quickly, every day we gave a new field to the animal, but very important is of course that the animals always have access to a drinking point. And the drinking point was in the north here, so if we shifted the field, we always had to provide a corridor, let's say, to that drinking point and make sure that the animals were able to drink. Of course, if there is a corridor, there is more interactions, and that is also what we saw clearly in the sound signals, not so much in the electric pulses. So then to conclude, I think, well, first of all, it should be very clear that the learning phase is very crucial. So it's very important that that is done properly. And if that is done properly and the animals respond well to the sound signals, then there is no issue with animal welfare or behavior. It's clear that they show positive behavior compared to, well, relative to the sound and the electric warnings. We saw a lot of variation between the animals, and that's also what we experience if we observe those animals. They have clearly different behavior. Some of the animals are just looking at the other animals that are interacting with the border and then staying away from that because they like to be more in the safe zone, let's say. Okay, rotation grazing is possible, but there are extra challenges. Behavior monitoring is also possible, but here in this case, I already indicated in the beginning, the measurement frequency is once every 15 minutes. Every 15 minutes we have a location and we have accelerometer signals. If we increase that, then I'm sure we could also increase the performance and accuracy of our prediction, but that would have a negative effect, of course, on the battery capacity or how long or how frequent we have to change the battery. So if battery capacity change or improves, that also comes with extra possibilities, of course, for monitoring health and welfare. I see a lot of opportunities in dairy farming for pasture grazing, for reducing ammonia emissions and so on. And well, I can also say that we did successful tests with a lot of other species, already mentioned them before. Then, well, I would like to close with thanking my different master students that were involved in this research. So there were 4 master students that were in the field observing those animals for hours and hours, and that resulted, of course, in this research and these results. So thank you very much to them. And well, if there are any questions, please ask.
Thank you, Ben. So thank you so much, Ben, for your presentation. If there are any questions from the audience, anybody who has had experience with virtual fencing, have any questions? No? Yes? Oh, sorry.
Did you actually see any reduction in milk yield for the ones that actually got the pulse or not?
We didn't experience or we didn't practice with dairy animals yet, or no dairy animals that were in lactation. We did some trials with dry-off cows, and well, also the farmer. Well, there are some. Well, we made a video. It's in Dutch, unfortunately, but it's available on YouTube where he shows his experience, and well, he was also very positive about it. I don't expect an effect on milk yield, but we haven't tested it. No.
Any other questions from the audience? Yes? Hanover? You need a microphone.
Oh, I don't know.
I've got that.
Well, just simply to say that I wish I would have something like that when I was doing my master thesis in grazing animals in the mountains, because one of the things to find it. But have you been able to relate the behavior with the dry matter intake? Because this is one of the key areas that also for grazing animals is very important.
Yeah, no, we haven't studied that. We did, well, we call them in Dutch haptellingen. It's the number of times the animal grasped some grass, and we could correlate that also to, let's say, the behavior, but we haven't really tried to predict the dry matter intake based on our measurements yet. Still, if you see, we can predict the different behaviors, and especially grazing behavior, with an accuracy of about, like I said, 70–80%. It's quite low to, or it's probably too low to already do predictions of dry matter intake, which is one step ahead. But I'm quite sure that if we increase the measurement frequency, if we can get, for instance, information of the position of the cow every 2 minutes, that would be possible, because there are indications in literature out there that if you can measure the position of the animal with a quite high accuracy and can also predict what she's doing at that moment based on, for instance, accelerometer signals, that correlates quite well to dry matter intake. But that's a next step we need to further explore.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ben, for your presentation. Please, everybody, a round of applause for Ben. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that brings us to our next speaker of the day. I would like to welcome Valentin Nenov, who is the Global Ruminant Manager at Vallejo by Le Safre. He will be presenting on optimizing rumen microbiome for sustainable dairy farming. So welcome, Valentin.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming here. And first of all, good afternoon and good morning for people that are watching from far away. Thank you for Dairy Global for the opportunity to talk in front of you on this nice seminar. Finally, not webinar only. I want to talk about optimizing the rumen microbiota, rumen microbiome. When we speak today about modern dairy farming, we always pop up the words like feed efficiency and sustainability. And when we talk about ruminants, and especially dairy cows, which receive a lot of fiber in their diets, we cannot mention rumen efficiency and rumen microbiome. And also the science in rumen microbiome is advancing for the last few years quite a lot, and we know more and more every day. And we can even now find differences between more efficient and less efficient cows in terms of microbiome composition. And I expect in the next probably 10 years we can use that even to select animals according to their efficiency. There is still more time needs to go there. So rumen in dairy cows, we have around 80% probably of the nutrients and energy is coming from the rumen fermentation or from the rumen bacteria, not from the natural enzymes of the cow, of digestive enzymes. But it's the bacteria that provides this energy and nutrients for the cow. So it is very important to speak about optimal balance of rumen bacteria, of microbiome in the rumen, interactions between those bacteria and the ruminal environment. So I will focus most of my talk now on the rumen and the microbiome to achieve optimal feed efficiency for better sustainability. So when we speak about microbiome, we don't speak only about species of microorganism, bacteria, fungi, protozoa, but we speak about a very complex ecosystem where we have in this ecosystem, oops, sorry, I thought it's a laser, no laser. In this ecosystem, we have different species of bacteria. We have the microbiota, but they are not isolated. We have these interactions between those bacteria. Constant interaction. It's a complex network of interactions between different bacteria in the rumen. So they are not just competing for the nutrients that are coming with the diet, but some bacteria will produce, for example, certain molecules that are beneficial for other bacteria to grow, or certain molecules that can inhibit another bacteria. Of course, they also don't live isolated in the rumen. The bacteria are dependent on the environment. They live in an environment, in the biotope. And this biotope is represented like different temperature, humidity, pH, redox potential, that all interact with the bacteria and determine how those bacteria will ferment, will develop, will grow. And all that, of course, is constantly challenged by the diet of the cow, by the health status and the stress of the cow. So we can say that this is an ecosystem that is in constant challenge and in dynamic balance, trying to balance itself, but it's in a constant challenge. I will show you some graphs here from previous studies we have made to demonstrate that a small change in the diet can have a serious significant effect on the microbiome or in the rumen environment. Here, for example, in this study, there was a change only in the type of concentrate. So not the level of energy or protein, just the type of concentrate. So in the two diets, we have the same corn silage. We have the same soybean meal as a protein source, but we are moving from 17% corn, 70% wheat to 16% corn. So we are changing the concentrate, and with that, we see a difference in redox potential in the rumen. And redox potential is a measurement of anaerobic environment and anaerobic fermentation in general. That's mean activity of anaerobic microorganisms. And we can see here that we have a significant change in the redox potential with the same dry matter intake, which means that something is happening in this rumen different. There is different types of fermentation happening. When we look at the microbiome in the rumen, this is actually molecular fingerprint. So each pike can be a different group of bacteria, similar bacteria, like a family of bacteria. And you will see between the two diets, we have the different redox potential, but also we have different abundance of those bacteria. So they're the same species in the two diets, of course, but their abundance is different, and sometimes it differs like by more than 20%. So, for example, you see here in the red pike compared to the black. So we speak about this family of bacteria will be more abundant with one diet and another one with the other diet. So there is definitely a small change in the diet, may have a big change in rumen bacteria, even we don't see it sometimes in behavior or production of the cow, but it can have a longer impact. So yes, that's diet is important, and rumen microbiome is a complex. Of course, I want to speak now about yeast probiotics and how they can support the rumen microbiota and rumen fermentation in different conditions and diets. I will show you some data, some research that we have done with our rumen probiotic Actisaf. And here it's just to explain and to show with this table how it changes the environment in the rumen. So this is in vivo in a dairy cow, and we have 0 grams, half gram, and 5 grams of yeast probiotic going into the rumen, and we already can see some significant changes. We have pH increasing with the time, which we were expecting, but what is very important, we have a change in redox potential going towards lower levels, negative levels, which means more anaerobic environment in the rumen and more activity of anaerobic bacteria. We see also changes in VFA that also demonstrate different fermentation, different activity of anaerobic bacteria, and of course, one of the mode of action of live yeast probiotics, we see significant decrease of lactic acid, which means more favorable environment to reduce the risk of acidosis. But what happens to the bacteria community? So it's important to see, to notice here that we start observing some changes even with half gram, which is very low dose. But here the dose is very important. When we increase to 5 gram, we see quite more significant changes even compared to half gram. So it's important to notice that. Now we have several studies on the microbiome and the major changes in the rumen. We have observed that when we are supplying probiotic yeast, we have major changes in those families of bacteria. We have those species, lactic acid utilizers and fibrolytic bacteria. Those are the major species involved in fiber digestion and in lactic acid utilization, from which we observe also reduction of lactic acid in the rumen, which helps to prevent acidosis. And we observe also a significant increase in NDF and ADF, and you can see here it is even comparable to sodium bicarbonate, compared to sodium bicarbonate, which is rumen buffer, and it is given to reduce the risk of acidosis and improve fiber degradation in the rumen. So those are the effect of the change of the microbiome. So in this case, live yeast will not work directly on the bacteria, but on the environment of the rumen, making it more favorable to the bacteria. And then we have certain species of bacteria that will grow faster. Now, when we look at the diet changes and the change of microbiome, we did a study with live yeast, looking at the microbiome changes in the animals. So here we have cows, 4 cows with on a similar diet with very close microbiome. When we change diet again from corn to wheat, 15% corn to 15% wheat here, we see that according to the microbiome composition and the relative abundance of different species, they show big differences from the original point when they started, and also between the cows. They did not respond the same way. So there was a big variation between the cows from the beginning they were and after the supplementation. If we, after the diet change, sorry, if we supplement in advance yeast probiotic to those animals, we observe more similar microbiome in the beginning, but also after the change, we don't see so big drastic changes in those animals. So what we can say is that for them, it's easier to adapt the rumen bacteria. It's not the cow, but the microbiome in the rumen for it is easier to adapt to the diet change. I will show you some data on some ex vivo and then in vitro data on the effect of yeast also on more practical data, what we observe on the field, on degradation of fiber in different forages. So here we have different alfalfa. The first is silage from France, high quality silage, alfalfa hay, Vietnamese silage, Mombasa grass, rice straw, and wheat straw. And here you can see the response of the rumen bacteria on degradation of fiber with and without the presence of live yeast probiotic. So you can see as the lower quality fibers we have, higher is the effect of the live yeast. So the live yeast is not, the effect is not direct on the fiber, but on the bacteria, fiber degrading bacteria, which on their side will digest the fibers. So this is in vitro in artificial rumen system that we did. We are continuing investigating more and more forages, building data bank of the effect of live yeast and the rumen bacteria and different degradability of different forages. So this is dry matter degradability, but we can see, especially on the lower quality forages, we can see the especially the effect on NDF digestibility, where is the strength of the yeast probiotics. So we can again see, according to the NDF composition, higher forages with higher NDF, and with lower digestible NDF, we have a higher effect from live yeast, which is significant. Now I will finish with a field data that will show how it works on real field condition. This is a study done with Professor Garnsworth in Nottingham University in their research farm. So in this situation, we measure the total tract digestibility, and we can see here that with ActiSAF, we have significant increase in dry matter and NDF digestibility, and you have tendency to improve nitrogen digestibility. So we speak here about very high producing cows, which you will see in the next slide, with a dry matter intake of 24 kilograms in average. So there was no difference in the dry matter intake between the cows, supplemented ActiSAF or none, but there was a significant difference of dry matter digestibility, which correspond in approximately 60 gram dry matter per day more digested by the cows receiving probiotic. And this is how it corresponds to milk production. As we can see, there is no difference in dry matter intake. The two groups are eating the same dry matter, but if we look at the yield, we can see quite significant differences in, especially in energy and fat-corrected milk. And that is especially, and most is on fat-corrected milk, because this additional fiber that is degraded to acetate and butyrate is going for butterfat synthesis in the mammary gland for de novo fatty acids. So that was quite logical to get those results. So as a conclusion, what can we expect from supplementing yeast probiotics is to improve rumen conditions for more optimal microbiome development, more optimal fermentation, to improve ruminal fiber degradation mainly, especially when we have some lower quality forages or lower quality fibers in the diet, which is coming more and more constant. Gain more energy from the feed, from the additional efficiency, from additional digestibility of the feed, which correspond to higher milk and more milk components. And this is the very good step towards more sustainable dairy farming, where we can get more from the same feed, or we can get the same production with less feed, depending on the conditions, through improving rumen fermentation. Thank you very much. If you have questions.
Thank you, Valentin. So, audience, any questions? Perhaps anything on ActiSAF that you'd like to know, or the presentation? No? I have a question, Valentin, or if there's no one. Oh, you do, Ben? You have a question.
Well, thank you, first of all, for the nice presentation. I was impressed by the results that you showed of the field study, so there are clearly a positive, significant effect. And how about the economic situation? So, okay, adding this product to this feed will give a more expensive feed cost probably. Does that fully pay back, or is it even economically interesting to use this product, or is it still too expensive, or can you comment on that?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, definitely it has a cost. It has a cost with all the research and production of the product. We do, I maybe missed to put it here, we do ROI, return on investment calculation, for every trial we perform, even if we don't observe direct results or whatever. So in this specific trial, it is 6-to-1, the return on investment. So for every euro that you invest in the product, you are getting 6 back. So the cost, you generally need to increase even the feed efficiency with 1% to have already positive effect. Most of the time we observe on economics, most of the time we observe around 5 to 6% improvement of feed efficiency.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have a question as well, if anybody else has a question first. Oh, we do have one.
Thanks for the presentation. Do you have any data on methane and ammonia emissions? And if not, what you will expect about that with the supplementation?
Actually, we have data from the same study. So on a cow per cow level, we have slight numerical reduction of methane, but it's not significant. But per kilogram of milk, and not only methane, but if we are looking at the total carbon footprint, we did a life cycle assessment of that with an external consultant. I think that I even can mention it's Blanc Consultant Group, which is quite well established in that. So we observe a reduction of between 5 and 7, if I'm not mistaken. My colleague Erika she's more involved in that. Reduction of carbon footprint, but we take into consideration many parameters like the feed efficiency, land usage, type of forages, degradation of different forages, feed intake, of course, milk production, and it is per kilogram of energy corrected milk. But it is not, I don't expect to see some significant reduction in methane because this is not the most of action of probiotic yeast. It is on feed efficiency mainly. But per kilogram of milk, we can see a reduction of carbon footprint. Ammonia, we have tested in the previous study that I showed you on the microbiome. It was not production study. We don't have milk data. It was more scientific. We have observed all bacteria. We have a reduction of rumen ammonia in the rumen, which is increasing with the effect with the dose of live yeast. We have looked also in the degradability of different proteins, and we see that we see more effect with lower rumen degradable proteins. So we expect by that, it's more as assumption as we don't have a full-scale study on that, but that there will be a positive effect on ammonia reduction, but on carbon footprint, it is already confirmed.
Yes, thank you, Valentin, for your presentation. Everybody, please, a round of applause for Valentin. So that brings us to our third speaker of today. I would like to welcome Bert Koppelmans, who is the Sales Manager of Precision Feeding Technology at Topcon. So welcome, Bert. Bert will be talking about Precision Feed Management 4.0.
Thank you. So thank you for being here. I'm Bert Koppelmans, working for Topcon for over 10 years already. Before that, I was working with Digistar, maybe a known brand for you as well. And I'd like to present you the Precision Feeding Management 4.0, so the next level on precision feeding. So, yeah, first of all, our solution is built on a platform. We call this the TAP platform, or let's say the Topcon Agriculture Platform. That's our cloud solution where Topcon is running the multiple solutions on in the cloud. Same like our TAP feed solution. On this picture you see the circle of life cycle, and you see the different applications Topcon is offering. So it starts with the field preparations. Of course, we have the seeding, the spraying, data collection, harvesting data, and at the end we go towards the farm warehousing and the animal feeding, and this is where I like to talk a little bit more about. Feed Management 4.0. What's our mission? So we have lots of feed mixers in the world. Lots of them do have sensors already, but we are just using this as a way up, way down scale, and we like to transition these mechanization tools into a source of data. So we start doing something with this data. So providing valuable information to all different parties across the chain. So don't think just on the feeding, more accurate feeding, but we can start doing something with that feeding data. So your advisor or the nutritionist, but maybe the vet can do something with this data as well. So we have data, real and accurate feeding data available for everyone who likes to do something with this data. And so this can improve your workflow and also drive the profitability of the farm and around. What's our mission? Feed management for every size of farms. Not just the big and large farms, but also the smaller farms where we feed with a feed mixer, or if this is a trilled or a self-propelled mixer, stationary mixer, doesn't matter, as long as the load cells, so sensors are fitted to register the weight. Bit an overview on the concept. I will dive into the pieces in my next slides, but so you get an understanding where I'm talking about. So we call first the TapFeed app. The app is connected to the indicator, so that the weight converter, the weight scale of the feed mixer. That app talks straight to that indicator with a display, or maybe without a display. That's possible as well. We talk over Bluetooth because that has lots of benefits compared to other ways of data exchange. So this app is where it's all about. Improving your feed efficiency with that, because this is your digital feed sheet. So no paper anymore. Not papers floating around, having the wrong ration. Maybe your head count is changing a little bit. You like to feed a little bit more or less. Just easily select the right load you like to load, change your head count, so the number of animals, or the total weight, or both of it, and then you hit the start button. And then you directly see the amount you have to load or to deliver to the right group, of course, of your ingredients and your groups, and it will count down accordingly to the weight changes on your feed mixer. When you finish your ration, you see a quick glance on how good you performed, so red figures, green figures, yellow figures, but green is always good, of course. And as soon as you see this report, it's already shared with the cloud. So then everyone who has access to the data can check out how accurate the feeding was done and when the feeding was done, who did this feeding, who was performing this good. Quick glance on how it looks like when you operate with a self-propelled, for example. And the same goes for the deliveries. Easy job. Everyone can do that, young to old. TapFeed, our cloud application. Again, we start with that feed mixer, the weigh scale, and the app. And that app talks to the cloud. So everyone who has a smartphone, I guess everyone in this room, can download this app free from the Android, from the Google Store, or from the Apple Store. And that talks to the cloud, and the cloud, of course, can be accessed from wherever you are with just a computer, a tablet, when you have an internet access. Reviewing data, changing data, editing data. Or when you are between your cows in the middle of your barn. Then the next level comes. Your advisor, your nutritionist, or who enters the farm and is somewhere involved around feeding, likes to have access to that data as well. So you can share your data on a basic or an admin level to that person. You, as Mr. Farmer, are in charge of the data, so you give someone else the control or the insights into your data or you pull back as soon as you don't like to share that with that person or group of people. Showing some of the results of feeding. This is from a Dutch farmer, so that explains some of the Dutch wording. The system adapts always to the language you run on your tablet, your phone, so it comes to that language. Over here you see of every day how much of the dry food delivered to that group. What was the refusals? Your intake, so your external intake from concentrates when you have a link to other management systems. How many cows were in that group? Dry matter intake per animal, your feeding cost, milk production, so milk revenue, and of course at the end you see your dry matter efficiency number. And that's the KPI you can benchmark yourself with others. These reports can be shared, of course, by the sharing process, but also we have automated reports. So when you like to share a certain set of data to a person once a week, once a month, then we have the automated reports in the system as well. So the benefits, compatible with every weighing scale. Doesn't matter which brand, as long as you have a working system, a working scale on the feed mixer. You have real-time insights and data, meaning you have accurate feeding data and no guessing anymore. Accurate loading and unloading results, so the real results. Ingredient usage tracking, so if it is a week, a month or a year, you know exactly the kilograms went through that feed mixer and came in front of the animals. Good to create or to make contracts with your food supplier, for example. You know exactly how much food you need over a certain period. You can create alerts when you are outside of certain boundaries. For example, when you are almost out of stock of a certain ingredient, then you can, of course, reach out to your food supplier, to the person who delivers the food, that ingredient. And the data sharing I spoke about already. Data sharing with your consultant, your nutritionist, your advisor, so they can work with your accurate feeding data, improving your feeding efficiency, and at the end make more milk, better yields, better quantities. And that's what it is all about. And of course, happy eating ladies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bert, for your presentation on Feed Management 4.0. I think I may have said that incorrectly earlier. So if anybody has any questions, Bert? No? System, Ben?
Yeah, very interesting technology. You mentioned that it's important to make connection with the scale, but what about the management software? The software where, for instance, well, the number of lactating cows, the number of cows for each group, milk production and so on is registered. Is that also a connection which you need, and is that a connection which is already in place, or?
Thank you for the question. Yes, we have lots of connections in place already. So with herd management systems, with milking parlor systems, so let's say most of them are established, so we can pull head count, external fat concentrates, milk production, so that brings you to that dry matter efficiency.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? Yes, we have one more question. Oh.
Hello. So far, this is not really a new system. It's just like we had before, but how about integration of near sensors so that we know more about the feed that we put in there before it's mixed?
A good question. Yeah, so we brought this up to the cloud, so more insight in real-time data. And yeah, that's not 100% new, but yeah, it gives you so many more benefits. It's yeah, the new platform, the ease of use, that's what we are introducing. Your question to the NIR, for example, it's really a good one. But our vision is to first start with more accurate feeding before you step into step 5, for example, which is the more accurate data on the dry matter, for example, on your feedstuff. So definitely next step, or one of the next steps.
Right. Any more questions? No. Bert, you mentioned, yeah, I just want to get back to feed costs. We know that it's a concern for many farmers out there. Could you give us an example of, in terms of what we can see in profits and savings with the system?
So yes, feed cost is the largest expense on the dairy farm. Most of the people don't know exactly what they are really feeding. That's something you get a good insights on with this application. As the hardware is just a small piece of hardware, so it's an entry cost of roughly 1,500 euros. And then it's a subscription fee starting from 340 euros a year, including the full support, updates, data security. And that brings you to a return on investment of, in most cases, just a couple of months. So 10 to 20% more accuracy on feeding, that's what you get.
Right. Thanks, Beth. Thank you for your presentation. I would like to introduce our final speaker of the day, and I would like you to welcome Hanover Gutierrez. Welcome, and she is the head of beef and dairy at APHN at Christian Hansen, and she will be speaking about probiotics in dairy production, the new normal. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Anna. Is it working? Yes? Okay, good. Thank you very much for all of you for being here today with us, and like I agree with my colleagues and the presenters that to have it face-to-face and not via webinar, no? Before I start, I would like to set a little bit the scene. In contrast to what the other speakers have done, I'm not going to bomb you with tables and graphs, because it's something I have learned for the many years working in nutrition, is it doesn't matter how many data that you have and how the data looks. You need to believe in the concept. You need to trust that what you are going to apply in the nutrition area is going to work. And then, only then, is when you are going to start opening yourself and you're going to start to try new things. So today I hope that I'm going to inspire you about who is Christian Hansen, that is the company that I'm working for, and also why you should start looking into probiotics in the nutrition of the animals, but also in silage preservation, and at the same time, why probiotics needs to become the normal. So it's not an exception, but everyone needs to use it. So let's start the journey. We at Christian Hansen said that nature is the biggest scientist of all time. Majority of the things that we find that are very useful for animal production are out there in the nature. A few examples of data. We can say that in our body, we have 1.5 kilo of bacteria, either inside or outside. Can you imagine that you don't find something that is remarkable good inside that? Another fun fact, if you want to hear, is that, well, that is going to be a question to you. You are sitting there very nicely, but how many bacteria do we have in 1 gram of soil? 2 billion. Maybe someone else? Silence. Well, and the other side, most probably I don't hear them. 40 million. So, yeah. Not 2 billion, but close. At least there are millions over there. So it's remarkable that you can find all this amount of bacteria in just only 1 gram. So, again, nature is the biggest scientist. We at Christian Hansen, we are one of the leading global biotech companies.
and that we are also very much based on a strain management. We have a database of more than 40,000 strains of bacteria, and it's our job to look into those bacteria that they can meet your needs. What is your problem? What is your challenge? We will look for the right solution for you. As well, we believe that we are developing, or we want to develop, ingredients that they are touching the food industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the feed industry. So we are a company that we are present in all along the value chain. So we go from the field to the human. So at Christian Hansen, you really find the partner to be in the value chain. What are we doing? In the part of the field, we are supporting the growth of the plants. So with the same resources, but they are growing more efficiently. We are also being present in the farm, either with silage inoculants or on the health and nutrition of the dairy cows or pigs and also poultry. However, today we are here to talk about dairy, and we will talk about that later on. But we are also supporting with our bacteria, the good bacteria solutions, the power of the good bacteria. We are supporting the dairy industry, the meat industry, to become more efficiency and to even be more sustainable, because we are increasing their efficiencies. And at the end, we are touching as well the health of the people. And later on, please, when you go out, bring one of the goodie bags that you are going to receive, and inside you are going to find some of the probiotics that we use for human health. So take advantage of that and get the benefits that we provide to you. So we are one of the most sustainable biotech companies, so we take it really in our factories, but we also bring it to our customers. So always, all the time, increasing efficiencies. So a probiotic, by nature, is being defined by the World Health Organization as a living organism that is going to support and confer health benefits to the host. So already, when you read that declaration, you can imagine that feeding probiotics to animals are going to have a significant effect on the health of the animals. They are going to be supporting the health of the animals. So you are going to help them to be normal, to have intestinal flora that supports the normal production of the animals, or even better. So let's get into some ideas that we have of how we are using the probiotics or the inoculants into the dairy farming system, or even into the beef production. So when we are looking at the different challenges of the dairy farmers, well, here you have just a couple of them. There are many, many, many. But majority of the times that when you are talking with the farmers, you do hear all the time these kind of remarks. So it's super important to keep them in mind. And I think that many companies are referring to them, but it's the how you refer to them or how you address them. So in the way that we do it is at this moment is in two directions. So we do it via supporting the fermentation of the silages. Silages can be up to 50–60% of the diet. So you make sure that what you are producing in your own farm is of extremely high quality, because then it's going to deliver the nutrients to the cows. But also we are providing direct feed probiotics. And here you are going to get a preview of what is coming in Europe. We are the top leading company in probiotics in United States. And we are now working in the registration of the next probiotic in Europe that hopefully will come in the market in 2025. So you are going to get a preview of what you can offer to your customers and what you can get here in Europe in 2025. So let's start with the silage inoculants that we are using, lactic acid bacteria. This number is a very impressive number, I have to say. I am in the company since only 10 months. And when I heard to my colleagues to say that up to 50, and it's 50% of the silage that is being produced in the farm, it can get lost. It can be misused. It can be lost. So the farmers are investing a lot of time and resources in producing something that later on they are not going to use. So that is an extreme amount of cost from resources, but also from time point of view. So when we are looking into the silage management, where are those losses? Where is that silage going? We do see that the biggest loss is in the top spoilage, top layer spoilage. If you are not having a good management, if you are not having a good inocular preservative, the top layer is going to get spoiled and you cannot use it. Mold, yeast development. So you don't want to feed that to your cow. As well, the other two main sinks are coming from the feed refusal and from the feed out. If the cows are not eating, they are not producing. The other one is about the aerobic spoilage. We all know that the silage is about an anaerobic reaction, so as soon as they get exposed to air, it's going to start to spoil. Of course, all these numbers, they don't sum up 50%. The rest, that is about 12%, 10, 12%, it goes in raw silage management. And there are also where we can support you, how you can make a better silage management. So what happens when you're using the right silage inoculant with the right silage management is that you can reduce those losses up to 20%. We are not going to have always a perfect situation. There is going to be always something happening, weather conditions or any other thing, or when we are transporting the silage from one place to another, it may get lost. But we can reduce it with a good management, and that is very important. So when you are using our top brand Silosoft range of products of inoculants, we can help you already from application when you are collecting the grass, corn, alfalfa, any of the crops that you want, to the part of when you are doing it in the bunker, and then you benefit at the feed level. So pretty impressive. And because we are really, really proud of our products, we do say the Silosoft is about seeing is believing. If you still, after what I said, you don't believe me, I challenge you to come to visit us and you are going to see it. You are going to be able to experience what a good silage inoculant can do for you. Here in this slide, you can see the different many benefits that you can have with our Silosoft products, but I would like to highlight three. The first one is that our silage inoculants, because they are so effective, only after 7 days that you have closed your silage, you can start using it. This is pretty unique, really, really unique. What is doing that? Is helping you to manage the feed that you have. You don't need to purchase silages from other farmers. You can reduce the amount of concentrate that you are feeding also to your cows. At the end, what you are doing is have an impact on the feed cost that, like our colleague was mentioning, is the biggest expense that the farmers they have with the diets. And of course, all that goes into more stable, less feed refusal, and it all comes into more milk. So I hope that at least the idea of a good silage inoculant is sticking to your into your head, and that you want to hear a little bit more about Silosoft. And for that, I will invite you again to come to our booth. So we talk about silage inoculants, and now we talk about the probiotics, what is coming in Europe. So for all those that they are outside of Europe, we do have the registration in many different countries. So we are very much looking forward to talk with you if you want to know a little bit more. So when we are looking in probiotics, we are working in the whole life cycle of the cows, from the early beginning when they are calves and they are using calf meat replacers. Actually, we do have a solution right now in Europe for doing that. And we are able to increase the improvement of the feed efficiency by 5%, and also improve the weight gain by 8%. But also because, remember, probiotics are supporting the health of the animals. We also see that in special cases, we can see a reduction of 30% of sick animals when they are being fed, and of course, well-managed probiotics. When we look into the dairy cows, of course, because you are increasing the feed efficiency, you are improving the health of the animals, you reduce the number of sick animals, so the animals that are in the hospital, we can say, but you also have an impact on the milk production and milk solids. What are those numbers? Well, you can see here that you can have more milk fat, up to 90 grams per cow per day, but also we do see that in general, more milk yield. And the more milk yield, that is a combination of animals that they are in intensified systems, but also in grazing systems. I think that we can also do it. You see higher weight gain under pasture conditions. You know that is quite a tough conditions over there. But we also see the better feed efficiency and therefore reduce feed costs. We also see, because of the increase of the efficiency, that the CO2 footprint overall goes down. So we also impact the sustainability parameters that we are all the time looking for. So with this, I would like just to say that we are, or we want to see, or we want to become the trustful partner when you are looking into the value chain of the production of dairy or production of meat. And if you come to join us into Christian Hansen booth, that is very, very close to here, you are going to have the opportunity to talk with our experts that they are actually also present in the audience. So our global portfolio manager for silage, Christian Witt, and Oscar Kirot, who is our global portfolio manager for the direct feed microbials. And with that, I would like to say thank you very much for your time and dedication. And if you have any question, it will be my pleasure to take it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hanover.
You're welcome.
So, does anybody have any questions, perhaps regarding the probiotics, silage, inoculants? Any questions about the presentation? No? I have a question for you. Oh, you have a question?
It is partially related to the presentation, but I see that you are positioning also bacillus products in adjuvant ruminants. I was interested if they germinate in the rumen, and do they have effect also on the rumen, or you are expecting more the hindgut effect, where we all know that bacillus is very efficient?
Yes, well, we do expect it in both places. We expect them in the rumen, because obviously the spores, they can't germinate over there. But one of the main benefits, we do see it also in the gut. Yeah, we do see that a very strong health benefit in supporting the health of the animal. But we expect it in both areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? So I know you are working on getting a new unique registration in the European market for bacillus. Why are you convinced that it will be so successful in the product in the EU markets, and what makes it so unique? Could you maybe give us some insights?
Well, we are very convinced that it's going to be a very successful product because, first of all, there is nothing like that into the market, and we do believe that it's more a complementary product to all others that they are already existing there. But also we are able to bring all the years of experience that we have in United States, where we have there plenty of years of experience working with probiotics, and we are the leading company. And it's mainly because it's a unique product that is touching not only the feed efficiency, that is super important, and production and farm management and performance, but also because it's supporting the health of the animal. And that is pretty unique. And that, of course, by doing that, supporting the health of the animal, then you also have less cost from the treatment point of view. So we do see that it's going to be a unique solution coming forward.
Beneficial all around.
Yeah.
You also talked about bacteria, and we've been using bacteria for centuries, and as it's part of our evolution. And you have focused only on 2 applications at farm level. Do you see these applications extending?
Oh.
And can they keep helping us in the future?
Okay. That goes a little bit more into the development now that we are working. Yes, of course we are looking into different applications, not only on silage but also on direct feed probiotics. And one of the areas that we are looking with the company is into the plant health. So we are working to get the product registered as well here in Europe, so that we can help farmers to get, use these natural solutions, because this is where we are focusing in natural solutions from the field to the cows, and therefore as well to us. So this is what we are doing at this moment, as well, working into that area. And what else? We keep that fun for the magic box.
Keep us updated.
Yes, we will keep you updated,
All right.
definitely.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Can you
Bye.
So we have reached the end of our webinar, seminar, sorry. So I would like to thank all our speakers today for their presentations. Just to mention before you go, this seminar is available on demand, so if you'd like to watch it again or catch it again. We have some other seminars later in the week. We have by sister titles Pig Progress and also Poultry World. And if you'd like to grab a goodie bag at the end of this, so when you go out, you may do so. There's some nice goodies in the bag. So I wish you all a wonderful day and enjoy EuroTier. Thank you.
I would do anything at all. No, I'm not innocent.